I know talking right after lunch, if you're like I am, you will have a tendency to go to talk, but I'm only going to talk for 5 minutes, so if I put you to sleep, that's a record. It's a huge honor to be here. Secretary Chertoff has had a huge impact on me, and San Diego State has a Homeland Security graduate program. We have about 500 graduates now. Most of them are in both government and the corporate world. So the thing that I thought would just go through here in a way is to look at this as a field trip to San Diego, to the wall. For most of you probably don't go down to Mexico and do things. I do at least each week. And so to look at the things that you are talking about here absolutely could have an impact there in a profound way to change the narrative that's in the media. And you would say everything that's in the media must be true, right? So you can actually sort of look at this and go, what's different? The reality is that, like what you're seeing here with the backdrop for the Chertoff Security Series is a fingerprint. Fingerprint is something that we look at and it gives us identity. And as the speaker this morning talked about, identity is something that's of extraordinary importance. When you cross the border, are you interested in providing your identity? Absolutely. You're going in, and here's my passport, I'm across. If you're driving a truck, you're trying to get there, you're trying to move, and just for the port of entry by San Diego, it's a $7.2 billion a year loss for how long it takes the trucks to get across. If your company had $7.2 billion lost every year, would you be interested in fixing it? Would you make money? So sort of looking at it, that's your problem now. Homeland Security, the first word in Customs and Border Protection is what? Customs. Customs make, I know it's late. Customs is money coming in. So look at this in a profit sense of how do you get it through faster, better, and then more secure. So as you would look at that, this is the general program, that Homeland Security program. We have about 150 graduate students. It's an extraordinary thing for me. I'm trained as a geologist, so I used to teach people how to find oil and gas. So looking at huge amounts of data and finding a pattern. Where's Waldo? That's where the oil was. So that same thing isn't very different in Homeland Security. It's massive data. What's the pattern? And so at the bottom thing there, the major thing that we really do is we link the physical reality to cyber. And that's kind of what most of you do as well. So when you actually look at it, here's a slide that's meant to be kind of fuzzy and sort of, so this is a patch. This is a patch on the fence right by where the new wall is going to be built. So it's where somebody crossed through, cut a hole, and then they patched it over. So this is a perspective that you could say the wall will be just down the road from there. There's the patch. Is that what you do? Do you focus on patches? Or is your perspective from the boardroom, what this conference is about, is a different perspective? So here's from the Chertoff space station, looking down. What you're seeing is the border. But your perspective from the boardroom is very different from the perspective of looking at the patch. So if you're looking at it, this whole thing is around an idea. The idea actually originally came from Alan Burson, who was the Undersecretary of DHS. He wrote a very powerful paper when he was head of Customs and Border Protection that's called Lines and Flows. Lines are borders, flows are things that cross it, the beginning and end of border. That's really worth reading. He's actually talking about it here, and in the background you can see he's talking at a university, CETIS University. He's talking in Mexicali. He's giving the talk in Spanish. So he's actually understanding how you do this, and so this is written in his paper in a very powerful way. So he's the originator, and the intellectual property is really his. So when you look at it, so now here's the field trip to the border. So here, this was me last week. I'm sitting at the border, and I went, oh, there, actually could use that for a slide. So there's the border. It's actually Vietnam era runway, sideways. That's the border at Tecate. I'm right next to it, getting ready to go in, and an hour and a half later, I cross over. Is that the real perspective of where the wall may go? Here is a perspective, perhaps from your perspective, from the boardroom. You've now just backed the camera out a look, and now you're looking at, there's the same sign, but now you look, you see the same Border Patrol truck at the top of the hill, but what you see is something far more powerful. You see there's a road over there. The road is more than a road. It's also a right-of-way. The right-of-way has fiber optics and energy going down it. Everything there is covered with a wireless bubble. There's enormous wireless along there. There's also a road there. There's travel that's going down there. There's a huge array of things that are really relationships and transactions. And so it's relationships and transactions across what's a line. Almost nobody touches that wall because it's actually hot and it's metal. But nobody touches the wall. Everybody is involved in all the other things. So the narrative actually has nothing to do with the reality. The reality, this was also last week, the reality of here's the collaboration across the border. So the person in the blue suit, you can kind of tell by everybody's posture, he's the senior person. The senior person is Secretary Daniel De La Rosa. He's the head of public safety and security for Baja California. An extraordinary person, deeply interested in partnering with the U.S. so that when there is something like an earthquake, he is the one that the relationships go back and forth and enormous good comes out of that. He's also the one that has powerful data, but he has no way to process it. Does the cloud go into Mexico? And you're going, so a powerful thing that can be done. His problem, putting it in the cloud, doing the things, he can then connect to the person that's standing on his left, so our right, is William Ostick, who is the Consul General for the U.S. In Tijuana. The two of them standing together, both asking this exact same question, and knowing that I was coming here, they're going, what you could do could be to answer the problem they have of how do you increase the collaboration. And then this is all at the graduation for the person on the left of the State Police Academy, as what they're doing is saying, how do we collaborate? They already work with Border Patrol in joint operations, but most of what they need is something that's very different. It's in terms of relationships, transactions, and trade. So here is now the wall. So here is the physical space at the end of, you can see there is actually a fence close to us. At the end of where it goes and it doesn't go up the hill, that's where the new one will be built. And then on the right is Mexico. The high hill there, Otay Mountain, when that burned in 2003 and 2007, mutual aid of the collaboration and DHS were absolutely the heroes in this. And guess who was in? That what took place was people said, the two places, it's not worth dying over fire, so how do we collaborate? And that collaboration has continued, and Secretary Chertoff has had a very long-lasting impact of friendships and relationships don't stop because you're in two different places. And so what's taking place here, if you ask the question as you look at that, the point of this are not the few pixels that are at the end where the fence is. What do you do that could actually make an impact? So look a little bit closer. At the end, as you're going off to the left end, there's some trucks. That's where the wall will start. That's where the 5 prototypes will be built. But now you, from the boardroom, look at this and you're going, dude, like, I'm from San Diego. Dude, like, look at all those trucks. That's tens of billions of dollars crossing there, parallel, absolutely parallel to the wall. The whole thing on the other side, you can also see, is built up with manufacturing plants. There's wireless over everything. There's communications, and we'll go on for a few more things. That as you actually look at it, so now we're looking from the same point. We're looking back down at the lower part is that same patch that we started out with the beginning. The patch is not your problem. It's a patch. But look at what's there. Incredible wireless. China put $100 million into it. So we didn't pay for it. They didn't pay for it. But the wireless is there, and look at the tops. All of those things are trucks. Truck after truck after truck, thousands of trucks. Like if you go to the airport, if some of you are flying, try to go to the airport and just say, I want to go to Cincinnati, and try to find another bunch of people going to Cincinnati, so there's no putting it together. That's how the trucks line up. Can you organize something and make it so that it works better? So that as you would look at this, it's not only trucks that are going there. So here is the gas pipeline from Sempra going, and the fence is straight in front of us. It's going, and it crosses the border. So the gas from Baja comes from the U.S. It's all of our SCADA, crosses over. The electricity does the same, but except it comes from south to north. The fence is right at the exact same. So we have energy. All of this collaboration is taking place, not just the wall. It's things around there. So that you would look, here is the exact point where the wall will start. So this is where they're building up to it and stopped. And so you can look at when you put a fence in, a very simple kind of a thing. Most people, when you put a fence in, you put a pole in, right? When you put the pole in, What if you took your cell phone and the accelerometers on that phone and made it into a seismometer? Then you have a pole with sensors, the internet of sensors that could be there, and what you've just done is it isn't a wall or a fence, it's a whole group of things that could do something that's of value, like pollution, the array of things of early warning of we have earthquakes is the major thing, nothing like up here. So I was scared to come to Northern California because not right. So when you actually look at that point of that's where it will start, but just across the way, is that in your narrative of looking across the way, complete wireless, everything, trucks right exactly there? What could that do as pointing out to how do I make those trucks go faster? How do I save $7.2 billion? How do I turn relationships and transactions connecting the physical to the cyber? And that's really what this is. So in a sense, what we have done in a very small way, we're doing a variety of software that's really about the relationship. That's the major way that connects law enforcement on the south to the things that we do in the north. And it's really built around social media, but a whole array of things that are with it. So it's really how do you build a relationship? And then in the relationship, how do you have a transaction? So of doing that, you could say you could just continue that from where the manufacturing started as it crosses over with GPS, as was mentioned earlier. But think of it then continues for the whole place that it goes. And the part of getting through the border, if you could just make that faster, you could profoundly change. And so the opportunity right now, especially on the south side, what if there was a wall on the south side? So our wall narrative is a wall on the north side. What if you made a wall, but it wasn't really a wall? It was a line of sensors. And it just made things go faster, and then you encapsulated that into blockchain. And so all of a sudden, this became a blockchain speeding up with the border. We just saved $7.2 billion a year, and then we exported that intellectual property to places all around the world. So with that, this place that represents a staggering opportunity as it's in the news, but what's going to be built is largely, completely misses the point. So what we're doing with my group of 65 graduate students this fall, both on the north side and on the south side, of going and saying, how do we actually speed this up? How do we invent something? And if some of you might be interested in being involved in that to help invent, how do you put this, how would we encapsulate that in blockchain? So in doing that, what the border becomes is a place that you invest in. It becomes a wall of jobs, a wall of opportunity. It becomes something that really is positive, that's not the narrative of acrimony. Your things, the things that this conference is about, the ways that Secretary Chertoff has thought through, how do you find a new solution to a hard problem? How do you be a prosecutor of ideas to get what is the truth in there? This is an opportunity, and your special expertise could absolutely profoundly change something just by putting ideas together as Secretary Chertoff has. Thank you.